स्वामिन्निति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभो नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंदा हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 आरती करिए प्रभु आरती हरे कि जय जय गौरा चांदे आरती को शोभा जय चांदे आरती को शोभा जानवी तटवाने जगमन लोभा नवी तटवाने जगमन लोभा जानवी तटवाने जग जनलो जगमन लोभा जानवी तटवाने जनमन लोभा जग 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 जनमन लोभा गौरांगेरारती को शोभा जग जनमन लोभा केरारती को शोभा जग जनमन लोभा गौरांगेरारती को शोभा जग जनमन लोभा जनमन लोभा गौरांगेरारती को शोभा जग जनमन लोभा शोभा जग जनमन लोभा दाखिने निता चांद वामे गदाधारा किबा दाखिने निता चांद वामे गदाधारा निखाते अद्वैत श्रीनी वास छत्रधारा निखाते श्रीनी वास छत्रधारा किबा बोशी याचे गौरा चांद रत्ना सिंहासने बसियाचे गौराचान रत्ना सिंहासने किंवा बसियाचे गौराचान रत्ना सिंहासने किंवा बसी प्रभु विमुदी कंबल रत्ना सिंहासने आरती करे ना ब्रह्मा आदिदेवगणे आरती करे ना ब्रह्मा आदिदेवगणे किंवा नर हरि आदि कोरे चामर दुलाया नर हरि आदि कोरे चामर दुलाया नर हरि आदि कोरे चामर दुलाया हरि आदि कोरे चामर दुलाया संजया मुकुंद वासु घोषादि गाया किबा शंख बाजे घंटा बाजे बाजे करताला शंख बाजे घंटा बाजे बाजे करताला माधुर मृदंग बाजे परम रसाला माधुर मृदंग बाजे परम रसाला माधुर 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 बाजे माधुर 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 बाजे माधुर 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 बाजे माधुर 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 बाजे माधुर माधुर बाजे माधुर बाजे माधुर 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 बाजे बाजे बहु कोटि चंद्र जीनी वदन उज्ज्वला किबा बहु कोटि चंद्र जीनी वदन उज्ज्वला गला देशे वनमाला कोरे झलमाला गला देशे माला कोरे झलमाला किबा शिवा सुख नारदा प्रेमे गद गदा शिवा सुख नारदा प्रेमे गद गदा भक्ति विनोदा देखे गोरारा संपादा भक्ति विनोदा देखे गोरारा संपादा हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 रामा राम राम हरे हरे Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Krishna, Hare Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Namo Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prishtaya, Namo Vishnu Padaya, Stotra Satanam. भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी प्रभुपाद की जय, शिला प्रभुपाद की जय, अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की, all glories to Vaishnav, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories to assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. So I think Mataji is not here, so let's just sing some bhajans maybe. Last who's going to? Oh, okay. Sorry. Oh, thank you for taking that.
Hare Krishna. Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari 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 Yashodanandana Vraj Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vraj Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vraj Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vraj Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Vishnupad Params Parivrajak Acharya Ashtotar Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Abhay Charan Arvind Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Vishnupad Params Parivrajak Acharya Ashtotar Shri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Vishnupad Shila Gaur Kishore Das Baba Ji Maharaj Ki Jai Jai Vishnupad Shila Sajidanand Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai Jai Vishnupad Shila Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai Jai Vishnupad Shila Hari Ram Sankirtan Ki Jai श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरी गोवर्धन की जय वृंदावन धाम की जय मथुरा धाम की जय नवद्वीप मायापुर धाम की जय गंगा माई की जय यमुना माई की जय भक्ति देवी की जय तुलसी देवी की जय संवेता भक्त वृंद की जय All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaurvani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschat Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Asti Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna. Any new visitors today? Hare Krishna. Welcome to this program. Thanks for joining. Welcome to our program and keep coming. Where you are living? Here nearby? San Ramon. Nice. Thank you. So we are reading from Bhagavad Gita, 5th chapter, verse number 26. So the chapter name is Karma Yoga, Action in Krishna Consciousness. We'll read the translation directly because we will be covering 3 verses and then we'll have discussion around that. Verse number 26. So the translation reads like this. Those who are free from anger and all material desires, who are self-realized, self-disciplined, and constantly endeavoring for perfection, are assured of liberation in the supreme, in the very near future. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Of the saintly persons who are constantly engaged in striving towards salvation, one who is in Krishna consciousness is the best of all. The Bhagavatam, 4th canto, 22nd chapter, 39th verse confirms this fact as follows. Yat pad pankaja palash vilasa bhaktya karmasyam granthim ugratyanti santah tadvam na. I think my reading glasses are having problems, so I'll just read the translation because I can't see right now properly. Uh, just try, I'm reading the translation. Just try to worship in the devotional service Vasudev, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Even great sages are not able to control the forces of the senses as effectively as those who are engaged in the transcendental bliss by serving the lotus feet of the Lord, uprooting the deep grown desire for fruitive activities. In the conditioned soul, the desire to enjoy the fruitive results of work is so deep rooted that it is very difficult even for the great sages to control such desires, despite great endeavors. A devotee of the Lord, constantly engaged in devotional service in Krishna consciousness, perfect in self realization, very quickly attain the liberation in the Supreme, owing to his complete knowledge in self realization. He always remains in trance. To cite an analogous example of this, I'm reading the translation. By vision, by meditation, and by touch only do the fish, the tortoise, and the birds maintain their offspring. Similarly, similarly do I also, O Padmaja. The fish brings up its offspring simply by looking at them. The tortoise brings up its offsprings simply by meditation. The eggs of the tortoise are laid on the land, and the tortoise meditates on the eggs while in water. Similarly, the devotee in Krishna consciousness, although far away from Lord's abode, can elevate himself to the abode simply by thinking of him constantly, by engagement in Krishna consciousness. He does not feel the pangs of material miseries in state of this state of life is called Brahma Nirvana, or the absence of the material miseries due to being constantly immersed in the Supreme. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadhati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakammalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha. Shri Rupam Sagra Jatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam. Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Shahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam. Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanitamscha. हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवास्ति गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण. So this chapter we are dealing is more on Karma Yoga, action in Krishna consciousness. This translates into the Hindi name of this chapter is Karma Sannyas Yoga. And these are the culminating verses of this chapter. So the topic is Karma Sannyas Yoga. That's the description of this chapter, where if we see from the translation point of view, karma and sannyas, how does the name look like? Karma and sannyas. So the discussion about karma as well as sannyas and yoga. So if we decipher that, there is an explanation given. Basically, like it's a balance between service and knowledge. So it's like when we say karma, in fact, in the chapters there is a mention that there are different kinds of karmas explained this. So it's like if we summarize like what those karma are being spoken, it's like in Western world we hear a lot karma, 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 but the Sanskrit word is karma. What does karma mean? Any newcomers, Mataji? How do you see karma? Uh-huh. Mhm. So basically, Mataji is saying that normally what we do is the action. So that's right. So basically, the action. But Bhagavad Gita explains these actions in much, much more detail, like all confusions are cleared out. We may have doubts like, oh, it's like we see practically so many examples that people born in healthy family, babies are born normal, sometimes born with some different problems. So we may see that, oh, the parents are healthy, but why all this? Why the baby is abnormal or for not normal as such? So there is a law that works, and those law is explained in Bhagavad Gita. So broadly, if we see Bhagavad Gita, there is a reference of 5 different topics as such. One is the living entity, the living force. Who am I? The other thing is, who is the supreme? So basically, 5 subject matters are like Ishwar, the controller, Jeev, Prakriti, Kal, and Karma. So these are explained. So how does it relate? Like this is a war going on, and this is a discussion between Arjuna and Krishna, and they are in the middle of the war, and this discussion is happening. How did it begin actually? No. Kal means time dimension. Like in English, yes, samay, Kal, time dimension. So this time dimension is typically like which bounds us to this material world. Like the moment we are born, there is something called T equal to T1. And the moment we are born, there is something fixed as death, right? T equal to T2. So that is the Kal, time dimension. So this entire discussion about Krishna and Arjun is all about all these 5 subject matter and the relationship. So that relationship is called what? Uh, uh, all these 5 subject matter discussed in Bhagavad Gita, what is this relationship between all this subject matter called? That's transcendental relationship, and there is a word for that in it's called sambandh gyan. Sambandh, the relationship. So sambandh gyan is extremely important because it's more like if we don't know the relationship, there is nothing else to be done in this material world other than these 5 subject matter. And the relationship between this, why do we need to know this relationship? This Bhagavad Gita entire discussion is around all the relationship between these 5 subject matter. Why? What does it help in? That's brilliant answer. So basically, it's more like, let's quote an example. Like we all drive motor car, right? Isn't it? We all drive motor car. So motor car, if we see, there are 5 different components: steering wheel, tires, then accelerator, brakes, right? And what else? Engine, right? So all these five things are there. So if we really want to drive this car, does it make sense to know what these components are? We may not know, get into the details how it works, but at least we know the function of that, right? Unless we know that function, can we really use a car? No. So it will be just like the kids playing around with the car, like zzz, they're driving, but it's like it's not going anywhere. Similarly, in devotional service, it's extremely important to understand the relationship between this. Otherwise, it's more like we will be driving like the kids driving motor car, right? No, it's going nowhere. So it's like uh, to make spiritual progress, we have to have this understanding clearly understood. Otherwise, what will happen is that, see, in devotional service, we are connected to the group, we are doing activities, and Prabhupada has made this arrangement that it's a kind of pushing movement that was like we are pushing each other to do different kinds of devotional service. That's very helpful. That's very important. That's extremely important. But at the same time, This knowledge is equally important to understand the relationship. Otherwise, it's like we will keep on doing the service and the moment. And that's important, that we have to have the devotee association. Without devotee association, what happens is like, if we don't understand this sambandh again, then we'll let loose. The devotional service will be impacted. So it's very important, and that is the subject matter of Bhagavad Gita. This verse, what we are talking, verse number 26, is the explanation of verse number 24. Let's read what is this verse number 24. That's just the translation. So basically, verse number 24 is, I would say, the most practical verse to make advancement in Krishna consciousness. Let's read the translation. One, yeah, this is easy. So it reads like, one whose happiness is within, who is active and rejoices within, and whose aim is inwards, in actual is actually the perfect mystic. He is liberated in supreme, and ultimately he attains the supreme. So so this is what is being told as like what where we should be, but how we should be, how to do that is the verse number 26. So let's read the purport of 24th as well. Unless one is able to relish happiness from within, he can how can one retire from the external engagements meant for driving superficial happiness? A liberated person enjoys happiness by factual experience. He can therefore sit silently at any place and enjoy the activities of life from within. Such a liberated person no longer desires external material happiness. It is called Brahma Bhuta, attaining which one is assured to going back to Godhead, back to home. So it's like Prabhupada has given the clear indication that if we are situated in that state, we are already assured to go back to Godhead. And then the verse number 26 is actually how do we do that? So it says, those who are free from anger and all material desires, who are self realized, self disciplined, and constantly endeavoring for perfection, are assured of liberation in the Supreme in the very near future. So that is what it says. So it's very important that who are self-realized. And what is self-realization? Self-realization is the process is given in Bhagavad Gita. That's what we were talking about, the sambandh gyan, the relationship. So unless we know the relationship between who is the supreme, who am I, what is my relationship, and what is this law of nature, how it works, how it acts on us, we would be just like the kids, we don't know. So it's important. This is Sambandh Gyan, and then it further progresses into the Abhideha and Prayojan. So Bhagavad Gita is talking about the relationship, and ultimately, if we see Bhagavad Gita culminates at what? Culminates at the point that Krishna says that Sarvadharman Parityaja, surrender to me. But if we see Bhagavad Gita distributed so much, it's not easy to surrender, right? Surrender is very difficult. Surrender at the border is easy, at the gun point, right? Oh, yeah, okay, you have to surrender. And that surrender is conditional, like, okay, surrender. And the moment I get an opportunity, I run away. But this is a loving surrender. So Krishna is talking about that loving surrender to the Supreme. And the process is given in these chapters. And this chapter particularly talks about uh, that how the service and knowledge need to go together. Knowledge is required, but if we just keep on reading and getting knowledge, it's like uh, we will be like theoretical. And when we have the practical understanding by practically doing service in terms of different activities, reading, distributing, and applying in the life, then that relationship is built. So that is the entire process. So as we mentioned, like 24th verse talks about like what is that position where we are completely blissful, and here it's explained that how that process works. We'll read the next verse translation and eventually we'll go to the last verse, which requires a bit of more discussion. Uh, Verse number 27 and 28, the translation reads like, shutting out all external sense objects, keeping the eyes and vision concentrated between the two eyebrows, suspending the inward and outward breaths within the nostrils, and thus controlling the mind, senses, and intelligence, the transcendentalist, aiming at liberation, becomes free from desire, fear, and anger. One who is always in the state is certainly liberated. So the Supreme Lord explains the yoga process basically, and this yoga process is very complicated, and the yoga process is very difficult to achieve. And well, actually, when we say yoga, yoga are different kinds. Like there is something called dhyan yoga, gyan yoga, and bhakti yoga. So yoga, the Sanskrit word yoga means what? Connection. Yeah. Yoga, the Sanskrit word means the plus sign, jod. Jod ghatao means, jod means plus. So this yoga is basically to reestablish our relationship with the Supreme, who is sitting in our heart as Paramatma. And there are different levels of yoga, like there is Gyan Yoga, Dhyan Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. So, that is the subject matter. The initial 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita talks about, yeah, Karma Yoga, and the next 6 chapters are the Bhakti Yoga, and the last six are the Gyan Yoga. And the entire relationship is explained all across the literature. So let's read the purport on this one. Being engaged in Krishna consciousness, one can immediately understand one's spiritual identity, and then one can understand the Supreme Lord by means of devotional service. So it's like being situated in Krishna consciousness is one immediately understands one's spiritual identity, that I am not this living force. So this literature, what we are referring, is not a Hindu literature or a sectarian literature. It's applicable for every living being. Being engaged in Krishna consciousness, one is immediately one can uh, one can immediately understand one's spiritual identity, and then one can understand the Supreme Lord by means of devotional service. So the way to understand Krishna is through devotional service only. It's not something that we read Bhagavad Gita and we become a devotee. It doesn't work that way. And Prabhupada translates bhakti as devotional service. Bhakti means Bhakta, Supreme Lord, and the process. So that that is what is discussed here. When one is well situated in devotional service, one comes to the transcendental position, qualified to feel the presence of the Lord in the sphere of one's activity. This particular position is called liberation in the Supreme. After explaining the above principles of liberation in the Supreme, the Lord gives instruction to Arjun to as to how one can come to that position by the practice of the mysticism of yoga known as Ashtang Yoga, which is divided into an eightfold process called Yam, Niyam, Asan, Pranayam, Pratyahar, Dharan, Dhyan, and Samadhi. In the 6th chapter, the subject of yoga is explicitly detailed, and at the end of the 5th, it is only preliminarily explained. One has to drive out the sense objects such as sound, touch, form, taste, and smell by the pratyahar process in yoga, and then keep the vision of the eye between the two eyebrows and concentrate on the tip of the nose with half closed lids. There is no benefit in closing the eye altogether, because then there is every chance of falling asleep. Nor is there benefit in opening the eyes completely, because then there is the hazard of being attacked by sense objects. The breathing movement is restricted within the nostrils by neutralizing the up moving and down moving of air within the body. By practice of such yoga, one is able to gain control over the senses, refrain from the outward sense objects, and thus prepare oneself for liberation in the Supreme. This yoga process helps one become free from all kinds of fear and anger, and thus feel the presence of the super soul in the transcendental situation. In other words, Krishna consciousness is the easiest process of executing the yoga principles. This will be thoroughly explained in the next chapter. A Krishna conscious person, however, being always engaged in devotional service, does not risk losing his sense to some other engagement. This is a better way of controlling the senses than by Ashtanga Yoga. So Prabhupada clearly brings in the information regarding, in this verse, Krishna is saying that the yoga process is so complicated. The yoga process is so complicated that we have to have a sitting posture. Yam means cleanliness. Niyam means following the rules and regulations. Asan means sitting posture. Then pranayam, pratyahar, dharan, dhyan, samadhi. So it's like if you really want to go into the depth of the yoga, then the city life itself is not suitable for doing yoga. So in city we cannot even see moon at night, right? In this place we can see, but if we go to San Francisco, will not be able to see moon or stars at night, right? It's all light. So this is not conducive. Even the city life is not so conducive, not at all in fact conducive, that we have to go to village, or not village, forest. And forest, the process is explained that you have to sit on mrigshala, the deer skin. You have to sit on deer skin, and you have to be clean, and you have to meditate. And while meditating, you have to not close your eyes. As Prabhupada says, if you close your eyes, you will sleep, fall asleep. And it should be partially open, and you should look at the tip of the nose like this. And it should be partially, it should not be closed. And then you chant the holy name, and that's a complicated process. And for that, it's like you have to go to the forest, and when you are half eyes closed, and there are animals around, then you'll just run away, right? So that process is really not achievable, and that too in this Kali Yuga, it's not possible, because in this age there is an explanation given in Srimad Bhagavatam that in Kali Yuga, in general, the verse is Prayana alpayusha sabha kalavasmin yuge jana mand sumanda matayo mand bhagya upadrata. In general, people are short lived. We don't live for 100 years today. Maybe 60, 70, something around that. Previously, people lived for more than 100 years. So, in general, people don't live that long. Prayana alpayusha sabha, short lived. Kalau asmin yuge jana, in general, the people. Manda sumanda matayo manda bhagya upadrata. Manda means people are dumb. So if I say that I am dumb, or if I say someone, you are dumb, people will be very offensive about it, right? Well, but the fact is that dumb means spiritually we are dumb. We may be materially situated that, oh, I am from an IIT, or I am or a great worker in a company, but it's like spiritually it's dumb unless we are rightly situated in our consciousness. So with that, all these predictions about in this age people are short, and that's the reason why modern days people like movies. It's like it's a big, people just go and waste time and see movies. Why? Because we like seeing others fight, isn't it? That we derive happiness out of that fight. People are fighting. Oh, this guy will kill this. Let them fight, and you just enjoy. We derive that kind of happiness because we are not in the game. We are just outside. We are just observing and just seeing others fight. So that gives some kind of happiness. So that's the reason why in Kali Yuga movies are popular, dramas are popular. People go and see drama because it's like you get some kind of perverted reflection of happiness in that. So So this yoga process is extremely difficult to achieve because we are not we are in the city life. We don't have time to meditate. So it's like, then what is the process? So the process is, again, Prabhupada explains in the later verses, a person who is in Krishna consciousness doesn't need to go into all that yoga process. Well, actually, Krishna consciousness is the perfection of yoga. There are different, we talked about karma. There are different levels of karma explained in Bhagavad Gita. But so basically, it's like there are two divisions of uh, karma. What are those? Anybody? Yeah, yeah. So that is sakam karma and nishkam karma are the broader categories of karma, and there are two more, which is called akarma and vikarma. Akarma means doing activities, not doing activities, which is not possible. If I sit and I say I'm not doing activity, I'm doing it. I'm sitting on Mother Earth. That's an action. I'm breathing. That's also karma. So that is, so akarma is not at all possible. Vikarma is possible, just capricious activities. Anything which is against the Vedic system is all vikarma. And broadly, as Prabhuji said, the karma are of two kinds. One is swadharma. Karma is called swadharma also, and swadharma are of two types.